Well, I think that everyone welcomed that particular term. It was a wonderful contrast to the America First slogan of the Trump administration. And I was actually here in Europe when President Biden attended the G7, would then go to Brussels for the NATO summit and the summit with the EU, and then I was here still for the summit with Vladimir Putin. America's back, I think, was genuinely and universally, by the democracies anyway, welcomed as an idea. The idea that America should be leading in the 21st century, given all the challenges that we face, was welcomed by the democracies. Nothing has changed in that basic understanding of the geopolitics and the geostrategy of the 21st century. What's happened, of course, is that the crisis that we face, this humanitarian crisis, the real challenge of that crisis alone on the ground in Kabul today, the misery and the casualties, the wounded and the dead, that in many respects seems to cloud the idea of America's back. That in many respects seems to make it difficult for our friends, our precious friends like Italy and others, to accept that this is a potential reality. But I would ask everyone, I would beg everyone to give this a few minutes. This is a terrible crisis right now, and virtually every country in the world is faced with these crises. And while this crisis is, in some respects, almost unimaginable as an end to the 20 years that we spent in Afghanistan, the reality of the increasing struggle between the concept and the reality of democracy and the growth of extremely capable authoritarian regimes and autocrats who oppress millions of more people every single year, that reality still exists. And that was at the heart of Joe Biden's motto of America is back. That's really at the heart of how we as Americans, with our precious friends and allies around the world, believe that the 21st century will be defined. Not in imposing democracy, but in coming together in a greater and stronger way as democracies to celebrate the human rights that we stand for, to ensure that we continue to strengthen the idea of democracies and inclusive and representative government for all, ultimately to ensure that the rights of women and minorities are protected and that they have a future in a world where the democracies have come together. And then finally, in a century where technology in so many ways, artificial intelligence and quantum computing and so many other kinds of emerging technologies like biotech will truly define the future of this century. The theory and the logic behind the democracies coming together to pool our capabilities, not to be in another Cold War with the Chinese or the Russians, but to simply be better than they are in our ability to govern and our ability to bring a quality of life to all of our people for their good, and to use technology for the good of all, and if necessary, use technology to defend ourselves. That's really the theory behind America is back, and the leadership that we still, as Americans in the United States, we believe that we both owe the world, but also we believe with our partners and friends that leadership can in fact be an important force for good at this point in the world. And while so much of that theory and so much of the logic of America's back and the summit of democracies, as it's being called, while the theory and the logic is very, very clear, the tragedy of the moment that we face, the tragedy of the moment that is right before us, seems to make that uncertain, and it seems to make it less clear as we try to work our way through this moment of blood and despair. But I would just ask that everyone consider what I've just said about the future for all of us, because we have to now think about the future for all of us. And I believe that there's still important American leadership that can be brought to bear with all of us together as partners moving forward.